The grand hall of the Galactic Council stretched upward like a cathedral made of starlight. Captain James Walker stood at the center of the vast chamber, his Blue Earth Defense Force uniform a stark contrast against the shimmering walls. Above him, hundreds of alien representatives watched from their floating platforms, their expressions ranging from pity to open disgust. The High Counselor, a tall being with crystalline features, raised his ceremonial staff. The quiet murmurs in the chamber died instantly. "We have gathered today," his voice boomed through the hall, "to address the matter of humanity's position within our galactic community." Walker felt sweat form on his forehead, but kept his posture straight. 6 months of diplomatic service hadn't prepared him for this moment. Around him, holograms flickered to life, showing various scenes from human history. "Observe," the High Counselor continued, pointing to the first image, a human colony ship performing a careful orbital insertion. While other species push the boundaries of faster-than-light travel, humans insist on running thousands of safety checks. The image changed to show a human mining operation, complete with environmental protection domes. While others boldly extract resources, humans waste time and energy on environmental impact studies. Laughter rippled through the chamber. Walker clenched his jaw, but remained silent. But most telling is this. The hologram shifted to footage of a recent first contact situation. A human ship encountered an unknown vessel and immediately established a defensive position instead of approaching directly. When faced with the unknown, they retreat to safe distances. They hide behind shields. They observe. A representative from the warrior Krell species stood up, his scaled armor catching the light. "In my species' opinion, they are unworthy of space travel. A species that fears the unknown has no place among the stars." Walker stepped forward, his voice clear and steady. "Distinguished council members, what you call fear, we call wisdom. Humanity has learned through its history that—" Silence. The High Counselor's staff struck the floor. "You were not given permission to speak. The Council has deliberated on this matter for many cycles." The chamber grew darker, and a formal declaration materialized in glowing text before Walker. His translator worked quickly, converting the alien script to English. "By unanimous decision of the Galactic Council, humanity is hereby classified as a cowardly species. Their status within the galactic community will reflect this designation. They shall be barred from participation in defensive fleet actions, excluded from frontier exploration initiatives, and denied access to advanced weapons technology." Walker read each word carefully, his hands clasped behind his back to hide their trembling. Not from fear, but from anger. Around him, the alien representatives began to disperse, many not even bothering to look at him anymore. As the chamber emptied, Admiral Reed's words from his briefing echoed in Walker's mind. "Let them think what they want, Captain. While they rush into danger, we'll keep doing things our way." The High Counselor descended from his platform, towering over Walker. "Do you understand the Council's decision, human?" Walker looked up at the crystalline being, his blue eyes steady. "We understand, High Counselor. Humanity acknowledges your wisdom in this matter." He kept his voice neutral, hiding any trace of the determination burning inside him. "Then you are dismissed. Return to your cautious species. Hide behind your shields and sensors. The galaxy has no need for cowards." Walker turned and walked out of the chamber, his steps measured and deliberate. In his pocket, his communicator vibrated. A message from Earth Command. He waited until he was in the privacy of his ship to read it. The message was simple. "Continue as planned. Let them underestimate us." As his ship broke orbit from the Council world, Walker allowed himself a small smile. If only they knew about the sensor network humanity had already secretly established throughout the galaxy. If only they understood that every cowardly retreat was logged, every fearful observation analyzed, every wasteful safety measure part of a greater plan. Let them call humanity cowards. Time would prove who was truly wise. Dr. Ann Miller stared at her computer screen, her eyes fixed on the strange energy patterns that flickered across the display. The dim light of Earth's orbital research station cast shadows on her face as she leaned closer, comparing the new readings to previous data. "Computer, run the analysis again," she said, reaching for her coffee cup. The liquid inside had gone cold hours ago, but she barely noticed as she took a sip. The computer beeped, confirming what she already feared. The energy signatures at the edge of known space weren't random. They followed a pattern that spelled danger. A knock on her office door broke her concentration. "Come in," she called out, not taking her eyes off the screen. Captain Walker entered, still wearing his formal uniform from the council meeting 2 weeks ago. "Dr. Miller, you said it was urgent." She nodded, gesturing to the chair beside her. "Look at this, James. These energy readings come from the outer rim. We've been tracking them for the past month." Walker leaned in, though the complex graphs meant little to him. "What am I looking at?" "Pattern recognition." She pointed to several peaks in the data. "These spikes occur every 12 hours, growing stronger each time. It's like something is testing the fabric of space itself, probing for weaknesses. Could it be natural?" Walker asked, though he already knew her answer. Miller shook her head. "Nature isn't this precise. This is artificial, and it's getting stronger." She pulled up another screen showing a map of nearby systems. "We've detected these signatures in 7 different locations, all along the border of Council space." Walker's expression darkened. "Have you shared this with the Council?" "We tried." Miller's voice carried a hint of frustration. "The Krell representative said our cowardly nature was making us see threats in standard background radiation. The others didn't even bother to look at the data." Outside the station's window, Earth hung like a blue jewel in space. Walker watched it for a moment, thinking of the billions of lives down there. Lives that might be in danger because of alien pride. "What do you recommend?" he asked finally. Miller pulled up a new set of calculations. "We need to expand our sensor network. If these signatures follow the pattern I'm seeing, whatever's causing them will break through in approximately 3 months. We need to be ready." Walker nodded slowly. "I'll speak with Admiral Reed. We'll need to do this quietly. The Council's declaration limits our official activities." "The Council's declaration might get us all killed," Miller muttered, but she was already typing up her formal report. "I've also noticed something else. These energy signatures. They're leaving behind traces of void particles." "Void particles? Like in empty space?" "No." Miller pulled up a complex diagram. "These are artificial, created by something that exists partly in our space and partly somewhere else. If I'm right, we're dealing with a species that can move between dimensions." Walker felt a chill run down his spine. "How do we fight something like that?" "We don't. Not directly." Miller's eyes showed a fierce intelligence. "But we can track them, predict them, prepare for them. All those safety protocols the Council mocks us for. They've given us the most sophisticated sensor and shield technology in known space." A soft alarm chimed on Miller's computer. Another energy spike had appeared, stronger than the last. "Send everything to my ship," Walker said, standing up. "I'll take it straight to Earth Command. And Dr. Miller." He paused at the door. "Keep watching those signals. You might be the only one in the galaxy taking this seriously." As Walker left, Miller turned back to her screens. More data points appeared, forming patterns that only human caution and thoroughness would have noticed. In the vast darkness of space, something was coming. Something that would prove that humanity's so-called cowardice was actually their greatest strength. She started another analysis. The coffee grew colder. And somewhere out there, in the darkness between stars, the void was stirring. The attack came exactly as Dr. Miller had predicted. The Krell colony world of New Victory burned. From the bridge of his ship, the swift observer, Captain Walker watched the tactical display with a grim expression. The Void Hunters had emerged from nowhere, massive ships that seemed to phase between normal space and something else, leaving trails of impossible energy readings in their wake. "Status report," he ordered, keeping his voice steady as the crew worked at their stations. 3 Krell battleships destroyed. His tactical officer reported. Their frontal assault strategy failed completely. The enemy ships simply shifted out of existence when attacked, then reappeared behind their lines. Walker nodded. They'd expected this, thanks to Miller's research. The Krell, proud warriors that they were, had charged straight in with their most powerful ships. Now those ships were nothing but debris floating in space. "Sir," his communications officer called out, "we're receiving a distress signal from the human research outpost on the planet's second moon. They've already initiated evacuation protocols." "Good." Walker allowed himself a small smile. The outpost had been ready for weeks, running cowardly evacuation drills that the Krell had mocked. "Direct our civilian ships to the designated safe zones. Maintain sensor coverage of the battle space." The crew worked with quiet efficiency, their training showing in every careful movement. On the main screen, Walker watched as human transport ships slipped away from the battle, carrying both their own people and any Krell civilians who had listened to their warnings. A new signal caught his attention. The High Counselor himself was broadcasting to all ships in the sector. "This is an order to all Council forces. Engage the enemy directly. Show them the might of our combined fleet. Glory awaits those who..." The transmission cut off as a Void Hunter vessel appeared directly behind the Council flagship, its strange weapons tearing through the supposedly impenetrable shields. "Sir," his sensor officer reported, "I'm detecting the energy pattern Dr. Miller identified. They're about to. All ships, execute Protocol Shadow," Walker commanded. Immediately, the Swift Observer and its escorts powered down their weapons and diverted all energy to their specialized shields. Shields designed based on Miller's analysis of the void particles. The space around them twisted. Reality itself seemed to bend as the Void Hunters attempted their phase shift attack. But when they reappeared, the human ships were unharmed. "Shields holding at 82%, reported engineering. The modifications worked. Walker didn't celebrate. Instead, he opened a channel to the remaining Council ships. "This is Captain Walker. Your current tactics are ineffective. Request permission to coordinate a strategic withdrawal to save your remaining forces." There was a long pause. On the tactical display, 3 more Council ships disappeared in balls of fire. Finally, a response came. Not from a Krell commander, but from the High Counselor himself, his voice notably lacking its usual arrogance. "Permission granted, Captain Walker. All Council ships, follow our lead. Match our shield frequencies. We're getting out of here." As they retreated, Walker watched the sensor readings carefully. The Void Hunters didn't pursue, exactly as Miller had theorized. They were ambush predators, not chase hunters. They preferred to attack those who fought back directly. Hours later, in the safety of hyperspace, Walker received the casualty reports. The Krell had lost nearly their entire battle fleet. The Council's forces were decimated. But the human ships, not a single one lost. Their cowardly evacuation had saved over 50,000 lives, both human and Krell. His computer beeped. A message from Earth Command. Phase 1 complete. Begin data analysis for Phase 2. Walker looked out at the streaking stars of hyperspace. The Council had called humans cowards for preparing, for watching, for running when needed. But today had proven something. Sometimes survival itself was a victory, and humans were very, very good at surviving. Admiral Thomas Reed stood in Earth's main defense command center, surrounded by holographic displays showing data from the recent battles. The room buzzed with quiet activity as analysts worked at their stations, piecing together everything they had learned about the Void Hunters. "Play it again," he ordered, watching as the hologram showed another Void Hunter attack. This time, he focused on the moments just before each ship phased out of normal space. Dr. Miller stepped forward, pointing to a particular energy signature. "Look here, Admiral. Every time they shift between dimensions, There's a 3-second energy buildup. It's not instant like the Council thinks. Can we use that? Reed asked, his weathered face reflecting the blue light of the displays. We already are. Miller brought up new data from the battle. That's why our shields held. We timed them to reach maximum strength exactly when the Void Hunters were most vulnerable, during their phase shift. Captain Walker entered the room, carrying fresh reports from the frontier. Admiral, we've finished analyzing the attack patterns from all 7 colony worlds. There's something you need to see. The main display changed to show a map of the attacked systems. Walker pointed to each location in turn. They're not random targets. Each attack focused on the most aggressive species first. The Krell lost 3 colonies. The militant Orcs lost 2. But the peaceful gardeners, completely untouched. Reed's eyes narrowed. They're hunting the hunters. Exactly, Miller said, pulling up behavioral analysis charts. The Void Hunters are like Earth's deep-sea predators. They're drawn to aggressive movement and active energy signatures. The Council's strategy of direct confrontation is basically ringing a dinner bell. The Admiral walked around the holographic display, studying it from all angles. The Council called us cowards for building defensive technology instead of better weapons. But our shields and sensors are exactly what we need right now. There's more, Walker added, bringing up footage from the new Victory evacuation. Watch the civilian ships. Notice how the Void Hunters barely seem to notice them. Our passive running protocols make us nearly invisible to their hunting instincts. The room fell quiet as Reed considered this information. Outside the reinforced windows of the command center, the lights of Earth's orbital defense platforms glowed steadily against the black of space. Dr. Miller, Reed finally said, how close are we to understanding their phase technology? Miller brought up complex quantum mechanics diagrams. We've mapped the energy patterns. They're not actually shifting between dimensions. They're creating localized bubbles of altered spacetime. It's why they can't stay phased for more than 30 seconds. The energy cost is enormous, which means they have to return to normal space to recharge, Walker added. Another weakness we can exploit. Reed nodded slowly, a plan forming in his mind. So they're not invincible. They're just very good hunters who found a galaxy full of easy prey. Species so focused on showing their strength that they never learn to be smart about fighting. The Council's calling for a massive counterattack, Walker reported. They want to gather every battleship they have for one decisive battle. That would be a slaughter, Miller said quietly. They still don't understand what they're dealing with. Reed straightened up, his decision made. Captain Walker, prepare a full tactical briefing. Dr. Miller, I want complete defensive specifications ready. We're going to show the Council there's another way to fight. They won't listen, Walker warned. They still think we're cowards. They'll listen now, Reed said firmly, because we're the only ones who haven't lost a ship to these hunters. Sometimes the best warrior isn't the one who charges in first, but the one who takes the time to understand their enemy. As if to emphasize his words, another alert came in. 3 more Council battle groups had been destroyed while attempting to engage the Void Hunters directly. Reed looked at the casualty reports and shook his head. The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's caution wasn't cowardice. It was wisdom paid for in centuries of careful advancement. And that wisdom was about to save them all. Captain Walker felt a strange sense of déjà vu as he stood once again in the center of the Galactic Council chamber. But this time was different. The floating platforms above him were half empty. Many Council representatives had died in failed attacks against the Void Hunters. The proud faces that had once looked down at him with scorn now showed signs of fear and desperation. The Council recognizes Earth's military representative, the High Counselor announced, his crystalline features dulled by exhaustion. Present your strategy, Captain Walker. Walker activated the holographic display he had brought. The chamber darkened as a 3-dimensional map of known space appeared around them, showing the Void Hunters' attack patterns in red. Distinguished members of the Council, Walker began, in the past month, we've lost 37 colonies and over 40% of the combined fleet. but not a single human ship or colony has fallen. Today, I'm going to tell you why. He zoomed in on the image of a Void Hunter ship. These beings aren't invincible. They're predators, and like all predators, they have rules they must follow. The Krell representative, one of the few survivors of New Victory, leaned forward. Rules. They appear and disappear at will. They tear through our strongest shields. Because you fight exactly as they expect you to, Walker replied calmly. He gestured, and a hologram showed footage from various battles. Look at your tactics. Direct approach. Head-on attacks. Aggressive energy signatures from weapons charging. You might as well be wearing bright red targets. Murmurs filled the chamber, but no one interrupted. They couldn't afford to, not anymore. Our analysis shows 3 key weaknesses, Walker continued. First, they must return to normal space every 30 seconds. Second, they require 3 seconds to phase between states. And third, most importantly, they hunt by detecting aggressive action. Dr. Miller stepped forward from where she had been waiting in the shadows. We've developed a battle plan that uses these weaknesses against them. We call it Operation Ghostlight. The hologram changed to show new ship formations and energy configurations. The key is to fight without appearing to fight, Miller explained. Passive sensors instead of active scans, shields that absorb rather than deflect. And most importantly, a new fleet formation designed to look like a retreat. You want us to run away? A council member shouted. Like cowards. No, Walker said firmly. We want you to survive. Look at these numbers. The display showed fleet losses. Your current tactics have an 87% casualty rate. Our approach has 0 losses. The High Counselor raised his hand for silence. Explain this formation. Miller highlighted different parts of the tactical display. Ships arrange in a scattered pattern, appearing to flee in panic, but they're actually creating a net. When the Void Hunters phase back to normal space, expecting to find easy prey, they'll be surrounded by ships already prepared to strike at their exact emergence points. How can you predict where they'll appear? Someone asked. Because they're hunters, Walker explained. And hunters are creatures of instinct. They follow their prey's energy trails. By controlling our ship's energy signatures, we control where they emerge. He looked up at the assembled council members. But this only works if everyone follows the plan exactly. No heroic last stands. No glorious charges. We fight smart, or we don't survive at all. The chamber was quiet for a long moment. Walker could see the struggle on many faces, proud warriors being asked to act against their very nature. Finally, the High Counselor spoke. The Council will review your strategy. But know this, Captain Walker, if this fails, there won't be a galaxy left to defend. Walker nodded solemnly. That's why it won't fail. Because for the first time, we're not fighting the way they expect us to. He looked around the chamber. You call us cowards for being careful. Now that same caution might save every species in this room. As the council members discussed among themselves, Miller whispered to Walker, will they actually follow the plan? They'll have to, he replied quietly. Because if they don't, the Void Hunters won't leave anything alive to tell the tale. The fate of the galaxy now rested on whether its proudest warriors could learn to fight like cowards. The bridge of the Swift Observer was silent except for the soft beeping of sensor equipment. Captain Walker watched the tactical display where hundreds of dots represented the combined fleet of council ships, all following the human battle plan for the first time. All ships report ready, his communications officer said quietly. They were all speaking in hushed tones. Not that sound traveled in space, but the tension made everyone whisper. Begin Operation Ghostlight, Walker ordered. Transmit the retreat signal. Across the vast battlefield, ships began to move in seemingly random patterns, like leaves scattered by the wind. But there was nothing random about it. Every movement had been calculated by Dr. Miller's team. Void Hunter signatures detected, the sensor officer reported. 7 ships emerging from phase space. Walker nodded calmly. just as we predicted. Maintain course. Remember, look like prey. The massive alien ships appeared in normal space, their dark hulls seeming to absorb the starlight around them. They moved with predatory grace, following the apparently panicked retreat of the Council fleet. The Krell ships are getting anxious, communications reported. They're requesting permission to engage. Denied, Walker said firmly. Remind them of the plan. We must look weak until the exact right moment. The Void Hunters pressed their attack, growing bolder as they encountered no resistance. Just as Miller had predicted, they were falling into a pattern. Phase in, attack. Phase out, repeat. Time their phase shifts, Walker ordered. Feed the data to all ships. Minutes passed as the fleet continued its strategic retreat. The Void Hunters grew more aggressive, their attacks coming faster and closer. Sir, his tactical officer called out, we've confirmed their pattern. 28 seconds in normal space, 3 seconds to phase, 30 seconds in void space. It's consistent across all ships. Walker allowed himself a small smile. Send the timing to all ships. Prepare for Phase 2. The fleet continued to retreat, but now each ship was precisely counting the seconds between Void Hunter attacks. They were timing their shield pulses to the exact moments when the Hunters were most vulnerable, during their phase transitions. Multiple hits confirmed. Tactical reported with barely contained excitement. 3 Void Hunters showing energy fluctuations. But the real test was coming. The fleet's formation had been slowly changing, creating a massive net in space. The Void Hunters, focused on their prey's energy signatures, hadn't noticed they were being surrounded. All ships, execute pattern Omega on my mark, Walker ordered. He watched the countdown timer, waiting for the perfect moment when the Hunters would be forced to return to normal space. 3, 2, 1, mark. In perfect synchronization, every ship in the fleet powered up their weapons. Not in the usual aggressive way, but in a precise pattern designed by Miller's team. The energy signatures created a complex web, leaving the Void Hunters only one safe space to emerge. They're phasing back, someone shouted. Hold position, Walker commanded. Wait for it. The Void Hunters appeared exactly where predicted, in the center of the trap. The moment they fully materialized, every ship in the fleet fired precisely calibrated shots at their weak points. Direct hits, multiple Void Hunters showing critical damage. The alien ships tried to phase out again, but the coordinated fire had disrupted their energy patterns. For the first time, the mighty Hunters were trapped in normal space. Continue planned attack pattern, Walker ordered calmly. No heroics. Just follow the plan. One by one, the Void Hunters began to fall. Their mysterious phase technology, once their greatest advantage, had become a weakness once humans understood how it worked. Hours later, as the fleet regrouped around the battlefield, Walker received messages from every Council species. They all said basically the same thing. We were wrong about humanity. Walker looked at the debris field where the mighty Void Hunters had finally been defeated, not by courage or strength, but by careful planning and precise execution. Send word to Earth Command, he ordered. Phase 2 complete. The Hunters can be beaten. Humanity's cowardly approach had just changed the course of galactic history. 1 month after the decisive battle, Captain Walker and Dr. Miller stood once again in the Galactic Council chamber. This time, they weren't alone. Admiral Reed stood with them, along with representatives from Earth's government. The chamber, once filled with scorn for humanity, now held a very different atmosphere. The High Counselor raised his staff, but there was no arrogance in the gesture now. We are gathered today, he announced, his voice carrying across the chamber, to correct a great mistake. The holographic displays activated, showing scenes from the recent victories over the Void Hunters. Each image showed human tactics and strategy at work, the careful planning, the precise execution, the measured responses that had saved countless lives. 6 months ago, this council declared humanity a cowardly species, The High Counselor continued. We saw their caution as weakness, their preparation as fear, their careful approach as a lack of courage. He paused, looking directly at the human delegation. We were wrong. Walker felt Miller shift beside him. He knew she was thinking of all the lives saved because humanity had stuck to its principles, had refused to abandon its careful ways even when mocked for them. The records will show, the High Counselor declared, that humanity's approach saved not just their own people, but all of us. Their sensors detected the threat. Their analysis revealed the enemy's weaknesses. Their strategy defeated an enemy that our bravest warriors could not touch. The Krell representative stood up. His proud warrior race had lost the most ships in the early battles, but they had also been the first to embrace the human approach. My people have a saying, the strongest blade is forged in the hottest fire. We thought humanity had never faced such fire. We were wrong. Their entire history was their forge, teaching them to be smart instead of merely strong. Admiral Reed stepped forward when invited to speak. Humanity never sought to prove our courage, he said, his voice steady and clear. We sought only to protect life, all life, not just our own. If that meant being called cowards, we accepted that price. The High Counselor nodded solemnly. Today we correct our error. The designation of cowardly species is hereby stricken from humanity's record. In its place, we bestow a new title, the Wise Guardians. The chamber erupted in approval. Species that had once looked down on humans now stood in respect. Races that had mocked their caution now sought to learn from them. But it wasn't over. The High Counselor raised his staff once more. Furthermore, the Council has decided that all future military operations will follow human safety and tactical protocols. Captain Walker, Dr. Miller, your people will teach us your ways. Miller stepped forward. We'll need to begin with basic sensor operations, she said, already thinking like a teacher. Everyone needs to understand the importance of gathering data before acting. And defensive protocols, Walker added. Proper shield timing saves more lives than any weapon. Agreed, the High Counselor said. Let this be the beginning of a new era, one where wisdom guides our actions, not pride. As the formal session ended, Walker found himself looking out at the stars through the chamber's great window. A Krell commander approached him. You know, the Krell said thoughtfully, my children asked me yesterday what true courage is. For the first time, I told them it's not about being unafraid. It's about being wise enough to prepare, patient enough to plan, and brave enough to do what's right even when others mock you for it. Walker smiled. That's a lesson humanity learned the hard way, through centuries of our own mistakes. And now, Miller added, joining them, it's a lesson that will protect future generations across the galaxy. As they stood there, watching the stars, Walker thought about how far they'd come. Humanity had never needed to prove its courage. They had simply needed to stay true to their principles, to keep being careful and methodical, to value wisdom over glory. In the end, it wasn't humanity that had changed. It was the galaxy's understanding of what real courage looked like. And that was the greatest victory of all.